Throughout time, the outdoors has served as a vital part of our history. The outdoors has served as a home, a way for us to feed our families, as well as a frontier to be explored. However, as time has passed and society has evolved, we've kind of left those older ways in the past, but there's always that little part of us that wants to connect to our ancient ways of life. One of the ways that we do this is through hunting. One of the largest growing sectors of hunting, particularly in young people, is duck hunting. However, duck hunting is in grave danger and has been for quite some time. Through the 19th and 20th century, wetlands were destroyed and ducks were commercially hunted, decimating their populations. One great example of this comes out of the Chesapeake Bay area in a book called Passenger Pigeon and Waterfowl. And basically what happened in this area is once the steamboat was invented, market hunters came into the area, slaughtered ducks at ridiculous rates, packed them into barrels, and shipped them upriver to market as fast as they could. Nowadays, you don't have to quite worry about things like that because we have things like duck limits and commercial hunting's banned. You can't do it anymore. But these areas are still at risk. So today I'm going to talk about the economic benefits and the economic impact of hunting and duck hunting, as well as what federal programs are in place and what nonprofit organizations are doing, as well as how you can help. So first I'd like to talk about the economic impact of hunting. So I'm going to focus on an article put out. It was a spending report by the National Shooting Sports Federation in 2019 that goes over the year of 2018. So in 2018, $27.1 billion was spent on hunting alone. In that, $7.1 billion was spent on equipment. So duck hunting is a very equipment-heavy sport. You've got things like waders, calls, and decoys. And people don't make a lot of their own gear anymore. Really cool thing you can read about from the University of Nevada is how the Native Americans used to make their own decoys and some decoys that they found in the Lovelock Cave area. These decoys that they had made were made from sticks, bones, and skin from previous hunts. Nowadays, we buy them. This is an example of a mallard hen decoy that I bought last year. Last year, I personally spent $300 on decoys, and that's nothing compared to what many of my friends spent. Now, let's move on to the traveling side of it. So, travel alone accounted for $3.2 billion, and then food and lodging was a separate $3.1 billion. Now, the important thing that I want you to understand from that is that money is not going into places like the Hilton or the Marriott or a Walmart. It's going into lower income areas in places like Brinkley, Arkansas, or Monroe, Louisiana. These places have motels, coffee shops, and restaurants particularly there for hunters. They're not really big tourist areas except for hunters. So these places wouldn't be up and running. These businesses wouldn't be there without duck hunters. And then also duck hunters alone accounted for $2.9 separate billion into the economy in 2018. So it's very important that we keep these areas alive and running and ducks coming into those areas so tourists come into those areas. The next thing I'd like to talk about is what the federal government is doing. And there's two main groups of programs I'd like to focus on. That's crop restoration programs, waterfowl reserve programs, as well as national wildlife refuges. So CRPs and WRPs are accredited by a book called Wetlands for saving many of North America's wetlands and a lot of the waterfowl populations that we have today. So basically a CRP is whenever a farmer has a field that he's not really farming anymore or doesn't really want to farm anymore, he can get onto a CRP and the federal government will give him tax dollars every year to make that into a naturally flooded timberland again. So they will pay for the trees to come out, they will pay for people to come out and plant the trees, and every year the farmer will get paid to keep that as a timberland again. So again, it pumps money into those lower income areas. Now a WRP is basically just a reserve area for a wetland that is undamaged at the moment, keeping it from being undamaged, similar to a national wildlife refuge. So two of the main ones in Arkansas that draw in duck hunters every year are the Cache National Wildlife Refuges and the White National Wildlife Refuges. So an interesting fact about the White National Wildlife Refuge is it's more formally known as the Dale Bumpers White River National Wildlife Refuge. For those of you who don't know, Dale Bumpers is a very famous University of Arkansas alumni, and the reason why the area is named after him is because he fought against the area being dredged out. So at the time, people wanted to dredge out the White River to make it more navigable for large boats. However, he fought against this because he knew that it would destroy the natural timber, flooded timber and wetlands around it. He ended up winning, thankfully, and he saved one of Arkansas's greatest natural resources that we have by doing it. So as Arkansans, we can keep our eyes open and make sure that we don't see anything like this happening again, much like Dale Bumpers, and just be on the lookout for those things that could damage these areas. The next thing that I want to focus on is a nonprofit group called Ducks Unlimited. Ducks Unlimited primarily researches duck populations as well as tries to restore duck habitat. So here's some research that they did in 2018. This is the long-term and year-to-year average of duck populations throughout North America. And the research and restoration that they do has to be funded from somewhere. So some ways that they get their money is through memberships in Ducks Unlimited as well as donations and events. So one of the best events that they do in Arkansas, in my opinion, is a thing called the Duck Gumbo in Stuttgart. So the Duck Gumbo is an awesome party every year where there's raffles, great food, cold beer, and even a duck calling competition. So even if duck hunting's not for you, it's a great time, a great party with great Cajun food. So I'd recommend that you go. It's $25 a plate to go out and have just a great day. But if that's not really your thing, they also offer partnerships. So FedEx has one that if you're a member, you can get a discount. And also Bush Beer has one to where if you go through their site, they will match a donation of up to $100,000 to Ducks Unlimited. So I've gone over today the economic impacts of duck hunting and what they do to retail as well as these lower income delta areas and how these areas would suffer without it. I've also gone over what the U.S. government does and nonprofits like Ducks Unlimited does. So if there was two things that I could leave you with, it'd be to donate and attend something from Ducks Unlimited, as well as get out and enjoy those national wildlife refuges that you work so hard to defend. Thank you. Have a great day.